Okay, back to it. I don't know why, but I know my technology, my old antiquated stuff, keeps getting messed up. I beg your pardon. My God, please forgive me. I am trying real hard not to swear. It is a bad habit that I got into many years ago. My husband's a hard worker and a manly man, and actually, let's be honest, I'm a old lady born in the 60s and survived, through a lot of crap. And I developed a bit of a coarse veneer as a result. And in working life, I had to pretend to be something that I wasn't in order to survive. In home life, I had to pretend to be something I wasn't in order to survive. In Canadian life, a lot of women, especially, and people, as time went on, had to pretend to be a lot of things in order to survive. Tragic situation to be in. I don't care anymore what I look like. I don't care anymore what I sound like. I don't care anymore how bad my teeth are because of. Well, anyway. Point is, let's talk about bubble zones. Let's ask the question, why are people allowed to pray and shut down traffic in their style of prayer when a Christian who's supposed to, and this is supposed to be a Christian country, can't go anywhere and pray without getting a permit and making sure that they're not around anybody they're going to offend. I say, let's start a rosary crusade, shall we? Please? Somebody? I can't. I'm going to try. Maybe try to set one up, get one going. But I think that's a great idea, isn't it? We could have Muslims praying in Yonge Street and Canadians praying at Queen's Park. And all the way down University Avenue. It's practically closed anyway. Anyway, back to it. I was there, yes, on Thursday. It was a long day. I took the LRT because I don't trust myself to drive all the time because I'm too weak and my eyes are really, really bad thanks to the erosion due to the Sjogren syndrome. Someday I'll talk to you about that stuff. But anyway, back to it. Canadian Capital Clips, new station I discovered, great station. Canadians should look into that. Church Militant, American friends. Please look in the archive version of Church Militant. Michael Voris, I don't know what happened to him, but he got me through the 2019. And I watched the election in 2020 live on his station called Church Militant. Wonderful station. I don't know where it is. I hope he's still working hard behind the scenes somewhere. But if you watch what happened 4 years ago live, I hope he's got it archived on YouTube. But you should watch it. Let's not have a repeat of what happened. So there's Church Militant. Clyde Do Something, Mr. Sunshine Baby. He's had a second baby now. I love him. Dr. John Campbell. He just came out yesterday with a wonderful talk about monkeypox, or let's call it mpox, the new and latest pandemic. I'm thinking that the World Health Organization wants to use to enslave the world again. I hope they won't. But we all know that the best cure for that, if you need to be vaccinated, you sexually active people who are primarily the spreaders of the disease, don't let them do the mRNA, because the monkeypox is similar to, according to the truths and the research and the evidence-based medicine, it's a variation on the according to learned doctors, not like myself. It's similar to smallpox, which was eradicated in my lifetime. You know, that vaccine that only old folks have, that's next on their shoulder. It's a mark, it's a scar. But I remember when I was a little girl having to line up at the military bases and and I was terrified because I was a tiny little girl. And I was lucky I didn't have a scar, but my sister ended up having an infection as a result of hers. But what they actually did is they injected us with dead virus. It was the pus from cows, I guess, according to Dr. John Campbell. He knows what he's talking about because he's actually a scholar. He knows that stuff. And he knows how to, he learned a hard lesson through the mRNA experiment that went on in the world and is hopefully, according to them, and Mr. Trudeau going to take over all of the vaccines. But these old-fashioned vaccines seem to be doing the job. And apparently, as long as it's like the old-style monkeypox vaccine that uses pus or deactivated stuff, it's safer, at least. It's only, well, you should watch his channel. He'll tell you the truth. And he can cite the real evidence-based medicine that's started way back in 1970s when it first reared its head. But remember, monkeypox, it's certainly not pandemic. Not yet. I know that there seems to be a new version of it. I wonder why. It's kind of a unique time, isn't it? I remember it was 2019 when we had a new version of a... Anyway, I'm not going to go there because we're not allowed. We could be arrested. And apparently we're still supposed to take that jab that I refused to take. And the truckers, most of them took. And still they got arrested for, disrupting downtown Ottawa a few years back. They're in trial right now in Ottawa. Tamara Leach and that other guy, what was his name? I can't remember. Thank you for that. I'm one of those Canadians who broke down in tears when I saw that there was somebody going to stop it. And I really had hope back then that you could. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And then they covered it up. And Canadians who are smart, really educated beyond their intellectual ability, I'd say, believed the crap that was coming to them in their papers and across their cable net channels that they're allowed to have. Altered, of course, to meet CRTC standards. It used to be called propaganda when the USSR was doing it back after World War II, but Canadians call it, what did we call it? Supporting our Canadian arts and culture. And then we had Mr. Trudeau say we don't have a Canadian culture. And then we have all these new people coming in telling us that maybe we should be joining them and taking over the streets with in prayer like Muslims do. And maybe that's correct. But I'm a Catholic Christian, and I like to pray the rosary. And way back when, in 1867, Canada became its own country, and it had Catholicity enshrined and protected within its constitution, largely because Catholicity was verboten in most of the world. You see, the referendum and all those other things made it very hard for Catholics to own property, have a voice in public squares, because we were the enemy of the states that wanted to rule and control. And as a result, the old saying goes, history is written by the victor. Well, now history is being altered by the victors. But unfortunately, they're starting it a little too soon. And Mr. Trudeau, the World Health Organization, doesn't get to tell Canada what to do anymore because we had enough objections from the Canadian citizenship to say, no, wait a minute, we want a debate in Parliament about whether or not we want to adopt this new plan. So, can we make that happen so the Canadian people know what they're signing up for? Because no, we don't want to be locked down again. You don't have the right to do that to us. You didn't have the right then, but you did it anyway. No. Let's stop it before it happens, people. Americans, my beautiful American brothers and sisters, I need you to pay attention. Why was Mr. Trump charged with misdemeanor crimes as if they were, mass murder? He was a mass murderer? I don't get it. He was a president. I don't understand why he wasn't president the last 4 years, but I'm sure you guys can prove in some way now that election was legitimately in Mr. Biden's favor. It seems to me they stopped counting votes sometime during the night, around 3 o'clock in the morning, when they figured nobody was watching. I was watching. I didn't understand why. All of a sudden, when it looked like Mr. Trump was winning, they stopped counting the votes. Somebody ought to look into that. I don't believe they ever actually did. I know that they pretended that didn't happen, but it did. I watched it happen. Michael Boris, his station was televising every nitty-gritty bit of it. I hope it's in his archives. Maybe you can use that as an example of what was going on there. Why? Why? That question is a very important question, American citizens. You need to start asking it. Why? Why did that happen? And that lady who's now all of a sudden decided, okay, maybe she'll give the Democrats another try and vote for Kamala. Do you actually listen to the words that are coming out of her mouth, I'm wondering? Like, come on, listen to the words. Talking about inflation. Well, it's inflation thing, a 3-year-old, a grade 3 student back when in my day could tell you what inflation was. Yes, it's the rise of prices of things. Beyond that, how come it happens? In accounting, first year high school accounting taught me that when you print money, things get more expensive and money loses its value. That's what's been going on. Printing money. Throwing money at things. Buying money. You don't balance the budget. If you don't balance your budgets, ladies and gentlemen, if you live beyond your means, guess what? Bad things happen. Who is providing for all of this extra money you guys are spending on nonsense? I know, I have a good idea who's providing the extra money that Mr. Trudeau has spent over the years. The people that are going to be controlling Canada. If the Canadian citizens don't stop what's going on. And they don't keep watch on Mr. Pierre Poilievre. Don't think you've got a free ride, Mr. Poilievre. You don't. Things really do need to be changed. You were part of the problem back in the day. Remember that. Remember what you've learned. Apply real skills to really indoctrinate freedoms of life first. Because Canadian people aren't allowed to live in Canada. We're supposed to become part of the MAID program. The ones who know the difference anyway. That needs to go. Euthanasia is not an answer for healthcare costs. Stop paying for people's mastectomy when they have healthy breasts, maybe. Altering their genitalia for children. Providing for, I don't know, providing for hormone replacement therapy gratis. Paying for all this stuff that doesn't, for non-citizens, for example. Preserve the life of the people who built this country. Don't try to kill them. Preserve the life of the soldiers who fought for this country. Don't try to kill them. That's what's happening in MAID. That's why we're the number one in killing our citizens off. United States, you have freedom of speech until the next election. And depending on who you elect, that will go. People will find themselves in prison for saying the wrong thing in the wrong company, just like we have. You'll have a court. Look at the courts. Look at the people that are being nominated for judges. For the love of God. There's a station on YouTube that's covering that stuff. Watch it. See what kind of criminals the Democrats have appointed to the judges. My God. Anyway. I mean, if you're a normal thinking person and you like being able to feed your children, you like being able to run your own business, buy your own home and all that stuff, pay attention to what the Democrats' agenda really is. Listen to what, well, I imagine by now, I would like to believe that somebody is in that whole group of people is able to give her a script that she can read that kind of makes sense, but I don't know. I mean, it has to be really uneducated people and sick people, weird people that believe the nonsense and that there's any, well, come on. Yes, part of inflation means things get more expensive. Another part of inflation is when you are not allowed to take home your paychecks that you earn, because most of it goes to the bureaucratic government that is so bloated, it takes more than 40% of your paycheck, of everybody, to make sure that you are monitored 100% of the time. And shortages of food. They eliminate farmers from being able to choose how to farm when their families have been doing it for thousands of years, or hundreds of years in the United States case. Look at what happened to the Indian farmers. Look at what happened to most recently? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Back to it. Let's go. Faulkner, Harrison Faulkner, Canadians. Watch him. He had this wonderful lady on recently who talked about, as a military person, I can't remember all the details, but watch his most recent YouTube report, I guess. You could call it a report. It's a YouTube report. Harrison Faulkner from True North. He was talking to this military woman who's talking about MAID, talking about the veterans. My dad was a veteran, so I know I keep in touch with what's going on. I'm a military brat. I was property of the Canadian government as a child, so I know what military veterans have to say and why Canada can't really protect itself anymore because they're not allowed to. thanks to the, you know, woke, I guess it's called. Anyway, back to it. Keenan, lovely reporter. Countersignal, watch him. Ezra, I love you, Ezra. My heart breaks for you, Ezra. You're Rebel News, Sun News. You're a good man. You are a good man. You are doing good work. Keep it up. And you've been doing it forever. And when I could afford to, I was paying $25 a month to the Democracy, to your station or whatever. I don't know. I had to stop because my circumstances are bad. But not as bad as the future citizens of Canada. Not as bad as the people who were conned into coming thinking that they were going to get a better way of life. Not as bad as the people whose lives I tried to save when I was involved in the refugee or at refugee program that was legitimate before Mr. Trudeau messed all that stuff up. I have families that I'm responsible for directly because I helped them come to Canada. And they were escaping a nightmare. And the nightmare is now coming to Canada. Breaks my heart. I'm not going to pretend that Canada hasn't had it easy because we have. I'm not going to pretend that we don't deserve what we've had to endure and what we have coming. I'm hoping that we can turn this before my great-granddaughter, who was born dead, thanks to my local hospital, who survived thanks to a Toronto Mount Sinai hospital, saved her life and her mother's life too during the COVID nonsense because of the lack of health care that was available to Canadian citizens during that time. Real health care. I can prove it. It's all a matter of public record, not public record. It's supposed to be private, but the CAN app, you know, that app that we spent billions of dollars creating, exposed Canadian citizens' health information to the world. And those of us who need to be terminated because we might cost some money are up for grabs, not getting diagnostics, not getting health care. But it's starting to turn around, I see it. Because when it goes behind closed doors, when people try to control what you hear and see and know, it's always because they're trying to hide something, and people who have nothing to hide are telling you the truth, you see. Anyway. And Andrew Lawton. He is apparently retiring from True North. He's becoming a conservative person running for election in, I think it's the Hamilton area. Those people in Hamilton who are in a good old-fashioned industrial town that's no longer, well, that's suffering. Andrew Lawton, wherever he's running, vote for him. I hope it's by-election, because, you know, I know we have a couple by-elections coming up soon, and we need to get the numbers to get rid of the fools. But remember, Mr. Poilievre, your job is to work for us, not the other way around. And I would like to know where all of that money went that was spent the last 10 years. And I'd like to know how come Erin O'Toole didn't stop the nonsense. Because Erin O'Toole went along to get along. I want to know why. I'd like to know why Mr. Harper, when he had the majority government, didn't fix some of the problems that were endemic. Because he had the opportunity. I'd also like to know why my local MP, Mr. Colin Carey, is retiring. Right now, when we have an opportunity to actually do something right. And this man has worked very hard with no help from anybody as a backbencher, because he had the decency to try to make a difference. Colin Carey, Oshawa MP, is going to retire. He never got any of the glory ride that I'm sure some front bench MPs are getting. I love that Leslyn Lewis is in the front and center. I love these new crop of MPs. They're telling the truth. Mr. Brock, I love you. You're getting to the bottom of things because you're a real attorney and want to know the truth. I mean, the truth does set us all free. And, you know, Canada is a very forgiving nation, or used to be. And Canada doesn't go around killing people with machetes, burning places down. And Canadians don't try to understand cultural, when people come from another culture where they're not allowed, sometimes think about this. Is it possible that the governments that are allowing for the people to leave their country are allowing for the people that they don't want in their country? Now, India, from what I understand, has a centuries and centuries worth of casting system of way of life, and the Indian people who might be coming don't believe that they're allowed to go to a public washroom, to go to the bathroom. It's possible. So when I was in refugee work, the people that we brought in were given us as a touchstone to help them acclimate to Canadian society so that they knew they were allowed to go to a bathroom. They knew that they had the right to exist. Help them learn how to be a free Canadian who's equal. Don't judge them yet. The ones who are marching in the street and want to destroy Canadians and attack Canadians and take over Canada and make it like their own country, please go back to your own country. That's where you belong. You wouldn't like it in Canada. It's too cold. You've got a beautiful climate wherever you're coming from. And you've got like-minded people wherever you're coming from. And you've got a culture that's thousands of years old. You want it? Go back where you came from. And those of you who want to be free and have the Canadian dream, stay in Canada. Don't vote. You don't have that right. You don't know who you're voting for. Don't vote. Don't break the law. And the public bathrooms everywhere, especially on beaches. You can shower in some of them. And you can go to the toilet there and you can throw your garbage in the garbage can. That's okay. I do love you. Every one of you. And that's what this world needs, is more people who who love each other, who are willing to tell the other person, look, I love you, and you're okay, and I'm okay. Let's just get along. Who was it? Rodney King, the poor man. God bless him. I don't know if he's still alive. Why can't we all just get along? And he stopped the riots in LA. Whatever he did that caused the problem, that caused him to get beaten up like he was, and it was horrible to see. It's horrible to see innocent people get beaten. It's horrible to see innocent people cancelled. That's why Canada exists, you see. It exists because people who built this country did some mistakes, yes. Because they didn't know any better. But I'm an Indigenous Canadian. I have Native Canadian blood in my veins. I also have all kinds of different blood in my veins. I guess that's why I'm multicolored. I'm white because I live in a dark climate and I don't have good vitamin D and all that nonsense. But evolution created me to be the way I am. We all come from the same place, ultimately. You go back, you peel that onion back to the center, and we're all the same. Really. Let's not forget that. But we all are entitled to live where we live and get along. This is Canada. The Indigenous people of Canada have been used and abused. But they still exist. They don't exist in a lot of countries that have been modernized. And those countries that have the Indigenous people existing still, they're not doing very well all over the world. And the globalists aren't the answer, because they're the ones who created the problem in the first place. So it's time to get rid of those globalist organizations that have convinced you all to hate each other, because we shouldn't. At the Farmer's Farm,